in 2008, similarly to during COVID, all of the interest rates in the rich world, at least, fell very quickly to zero. And because of that, everybody, all the traders, all the economists, expected and predicted a very big, sharp economic recovery, a quick economic recovery. Obviously, what we know now, is that economic recovery was very slow to arrive. So I became obsessed in trying to understand why the economy was so weak after 2008. And if you look at the economic theory here, what the economic theory said at the time, still says today, is quite simple. Low interest rates are supposed to stimulate the economy because they're supposed to get businesses and people out there spending money, because there's no point saving because rates are low. It's easy to borrow if you want to borrow because rates are low. So businesses should be investing and people should be spending money, and that wasn't happening. And I had this crazy idea, which if you've not done it, you should do it. I think a lot more economists should do it, of basically going out and asking people, why aren't you spending more money? They all said, well, what do you mean? We're spending everything we've got. We're not spending more money because we don't have any more money. And from an economic perspective, this is quite interesting, right? Because again, 2008, similarly to 2020, you've got all this money being poured into the economy by governments and central banks. Massive government deficits, quantitative easing, zero interest rates. All of these things are supposed to pour money into the economy, make people richer and get people spending money. And yet when you ask people, they're saying, well, we're not getting richer, we're getting poorer. Kind of didn't make any sense. So I didn't take people's word for it. I started sort of looking into the financial situations of my friends and their family. And what I saw back then, 2011, when I was in my early 20s, I saw, I'm from quite an ordinary, poor background. And what I saw from people from similar backgrounds was our parents' generation, ordinary people, not rich, homeowners. Our generation never would be able to own property. And what you see there is basically the loss of wealth holding of the middle class. And when you understand that that's what's happening, it doesn't make any sense to ask people, why don't you spend more money? Because what you see there is people are dissaving their wealth. Ordinary people are dissaving their wealth over the long term. That means they're on a long-term trajectory to zero wealth. And then I got called into a meeting by one of Citibank's top economists at the time. And he went through the financial situation, the fiscal situation of a lot of the countries, a lot of the world's major governments. He went through the fiscal situation of course, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Greece, Ireland, but also the UK, the US, Japan. And what you see, basically, what you saw in 2011, wherever you looked, was countries spending more than their income, running big deficits, dissaving their wealth, and building up debts. What really struck me about that situation and that meeting was not the sort of, this is bad, this is, Western welfare states will have to be shut down. I wasn't really in that sort of method of thinking at that time in my life. What really struck me was how similar the fiscal situation of major Western governments was to my friends and their families spending more than their income, running down their assets, dissaving their assets, and accumulating debts. And what was interesting to me as a mathematician, as an economist, is that that's kind of impossible, right? It should be impossible. It shouldn't be possible for both the private sector, individuals, and the public sector, governments, to simultaneously run deficits, dissave their wealth, borrow money, lose their assets, and go into debt. Like this is not theoretically possible. If somebody is accumulating debt, somebody must be accumulating credit. If somebody is losing their assets, assuming that there's not some sort of natural disaster, somebody must be accumulating those assets. But of course, I didn't have to look far. At the time, I was working on the trading floor at Canary Wharf, surrounded by millionaires. And I realised that this is what is happening. That is the balance. Like what you have here is a long-term systemic transfer of wealth away from Western middle classes, away from rich world governments, and towards a small super rich elite. And that is what is stopping basically governments and ordinary families from being able to increase their spending and their quality of life.